bad are things? You're seeing an increase in the number of people needing help to pay debt, right?
Yeah, we're seeing some very scary statistics sort of in Q2, which are in line with the recession in the economy. 30% increase in inquiries, people looking for help with Debtbusters, looking for debt management services. And to give you a bit of bad news as well, it hasn't got any better in July and August. We're continuing to see significant increases in terms of inquiries, people looking for help with their debt.
No doubt. Of course, we're in a recession, a clear indication that consumers are under pressure. At what point do people actually say, I need help, and come to you?
Unfortunately, it's very often that it is too late, where they're spending almost all of their monthly expenses, all of their monthly income on their expenses and debt, and they actually cannot afford to pay for their debt, and they come to us too late. Very often they end up with payday lenders, or payday lenders like your Wongas of the world, and they unfortunately are in a big problem where they cannot actually pay for their monthly living expenses.
Now, that's the thing, though, because we see more and more people getting loans, small loans. We see people getting credit cards, even though they're in such a negative and bad space in terms of their debt. Don't we have laws protecting people from that? Why are banks and loan companies doing this when they can see that people can't afford to pay?
It's a good question. I mean, there are laws that do protect the consumers. And at Debtbusters, what we do see, though, is that most of the big lenders do adhere to those laws. However, it is quite a lot more complicated than that, in the sense that consumers often will, shall I say, won't be as truthful as they should be in terms of the information they supply to those credit providers, and they end up getting those loans. And we also have a culture in South Africa where people fuel their living through loans rather than saving up to buy those sort of big things that they should be.
So let's talk about what happens when you're under debt review, because it's obviously something that's seen as being very negative. But how do you help people in that regard in terms of paying off their debt?
It's quite interesting. In terms of the market, debt review is seen sort of in a negative light. However, at Debtbusters, we've helped tens of thousands of people get out of debt and get back on their feet. And if it's a process that's done appropriately with a reputable company, debt management company like Debtbusters, it can actually help consumers greatly and allow them to get back on their feet and feed their family. The simple way that we actually do that is we do a full budget and financial analysis with the consumer to understand what they're spending on a monthly basis on their general expenses and their debt. And then we have a look at what they can actually afford from a debt perspective. And then we renegotiate with all the credit providers and banks to make sure that that consumer can afford to pay their debt and afford to pay their monthly expenses and feed their family. Yeah. And it's a process that is not easy. It needs a consumer to take a step back and cut certain things in their lives, but you can make a good decision for the long term. And it's quite interesting in the sense that so the average South African consumer is probably very much in line with the South African country in terms of taking out too much debt, very often expensive debt, and we all need to tighten our belt and make a good decision for the future.